Jacob born. I am still hungover from last night's fun. Jacob born. I think I legitimately drank 16 liters of alcohol in one night because the Rangers won. I forgot to say no to my friends. Jacob, I think she was really a dude. Then I fell asleep on the train. Oh my God, I've got vertigo. My battery's about to die. Holy shit, Mom, please help me out. What's going on? I'm so confused.
That was a fantastic rock opera.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that had various bits of truth that I'm not going to admit or suss out. But hey, did you notice that all of a sudden, April showers brought May flowers to this glorious land of ours?
For the last week, if you would have told me that the sun existed, I would not have believed you. But finally, it is out, and it is a gorgeous day, and I'm so excited.
I woke up each of the last couple of mornings, and I looked at the trees outside my window, and I said, "My God, you're alive! Finally! Holy shit! Maybe the snow will finally melt."
It's just been raining here for the past week, and I've hated it.
Yeah, we get like 6 hours of beautiful 70 degrees and sunny, and then 6 days of, I think I accidentally moved to Seattle.
Yep, that was pretty much the exact same thing out here.
Yeah, well, why does Wisconsin and Long Island have the same weather?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
It was just that big of a overkill. The clouds just decided that it wanted to span from Long Island to Milwaukee.
Could you imagine what it might be like to suspend gravity and actually float around in a cloud like that?
Oh, that'd be so cool.
And you start out on Long Island, wander around the cloud. Oh, I think that's Montreal below me.
That'd be fantastic. That'd be so cool.
And then the raindrops get all snooty and they start trying to talk to you in French.
And then that's when they're like, screw you, I don't speak French.
Go back to Quebec. We are in Quebec. I mean France.
Go back to France.
Let's sigh.
Let's sigh.
All right, buddy. So it is officially spring, I'd say.
I would think so.
Today, I don't know if you noticed, it's May 3rd.
It is May 3rd.
It's 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 Central. Riegler here, you there. I didn't need to. Well, you don't get the joke. There's a radio host, Steve Summers, known as the Schmooze, and he opens up, "Schmooze here, you there."
Gotcha.
I'm like I like making that joke, but anyway.
People gotta know it.
Alright, so the last time we talked was on Tuesday, and the first round hadn't quite ended yet.
Nope.
And before we get into the second round, we should talk about how the first round ended. So let's just get right to it and talk about the most interesting example, which is obviously how a spunky bunch of former Islanders took on the juggernaut that were the Colorado Avalanche and beat their asses.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's not quite what happened, but let's roll with it.
Well, I mean, Nino Niederreiter scored the 2 goals in that game.
Yeah.
I think he got the game tying and the game winning goal.
Yeah, he had both. And Danny Heatley, who had scored earlier in the game, and Jared Spurgeon have an Islanders connection. I believe Heatley's is that the Islanders they decided to take Rick DiPietro instead, and they had drafted Jared Spurgeon but didn't sign him.
Gotcha.
But yeah, let's talk quickly about that game, and then let's get into the battle of San Jose and in Los Angeles. So
Yeah.
these are quickly my thoughts on the game. It was a rip-roaring affair that I would happily watch again. That whole series was just so interesting.
Yeah.
It had so many twists and turns and momentum and success. And the funniest part for me is not the Islanders thing. I think that's more quirky and coincidental.
Uh-huh.
You know, Molson had a couple of points in Game 7 as well, for what it's worth. It's that Mr. Universe, A, got the win in Game 7,
Uh-huh.
and only had to make one save, and B, is now farther along in the season than the Flyers, which, look, like, I think that's interesting because the Flyers are a vastly superior team, in my opinion, to the Wild. And the circumstances of what led to Briz starting the series and finishing the series are just,
Vastly different.
you can't make this stuff up. So, that's my 2 cents.
I think that was my point exactly, is that the fact that Bridge comes in a tied game,
No, they were down 4-3.
No, they were down. Yeah, they were down a goal. But he comes in, it's just like, it's so ridiculous, but at the same time, it is like the perfect thing. Like, how else would that end? Of course, Briz is going to come in at Game 7, down a goal, and lead them to victory. It's just, oh my god, I was so excited to see Briz come in, and that whole series, like, I mean, it's a good thing that the voting for, like, awards are over, because Varlamov seriously could have taken a hit in his Vezina campaign because of that final game, because of game 7. And Nino Niederreiter just absolutely sniped him for the final goal, for the game-winning goal. Like, that was fantastic. But it's just, oh my god, it was such a good series. And that game 7 was so great. I loved watching every minute of that.
Well, not to rain on your Vezina point, but all the awards are voted on before the playoffs begin.
That's what I'm saying. No, I'm glad that that's still the case, because
okay. I misunderstood you then.
No, his Vezina campaign would have been seriously hurt had votes not been in already.
Yeah. Still no update on Kemper. All right, so here's my pet theory that I have no evidence for other than just the way that I viewed his body language.
Yep.
So we know that Kemper has been injured coming into the playoffs.
Yep.
The body language said to me that he was dealing with anxiety. It was late in the third. They were down a goal. You can argue the Eric Johnson goal in particular, as well as one other, please forgive me for not recalling, but the fourth goal, should have been stopped. And this being his first trip on this rodeo, and being the goalie, and letting in a softie or two late in the game, Game 7, that can drive up one's anxiety. And so I think he had a panic attack, and along with his concussion symptoms, they combined to force him out of the game. So I've had that happen to me, and sometimes it takes a little push, and you can fight the spiral, the downward spiral, but sometimes, man, you just lose it. And I think that's what happened to Darcy, and that's terrible, and hopefully he learns from it, and like, this is a blip on the radar. But I think that would make bringing in Briz that much more interesting, given the way that he's portrayed in the media as a head case and a nut job.
Right. I mean, I don't know, because I wasn't, I didn't pay too much attention to what happened to him when Briz came in, because I was at a bar watching it with a few of my friends. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that's a fantastic point, and a great, the words escaping me. Just looking at how, I would never even thought of how Briz is portrayed in the media, and then having Darcy have that anxiety attack. And like you said, it sucks. and you hope he gets better. But that's actually a very interesting point to have, like, say, oh, hey, this is a guy that everybody says is freaking crazy, and now he has to come in and relieve, and ended up winning the game after his the guy he backs up had an anxiety attack.
Yeah, well, either way, hope Kemper recovers and the Wild aren't terribly hindered by their goalie situation. But we'll come back to the Wild later on in the show.
Yes,
let's move over to Southern California. And listen, all we got to talk about is Game 7 and the postscript for the Sharks. Okay, so these are my 2 cents. Game 7 was all Kings. And it wasn't so much that the Sharks didn't show up. They didn't choke this particular game. The Kings came out with that extra gear and played like it for 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between coming out sluggish, being sloppy, being tense, whatever. When you're self-imposing your own mistakes versus when the other team is just better than you that night. And that's what I thought happened. The Kings were just better the whole way through. And I never thought I would see a reverse sweep once in my life. And now I've seen 3. Right? We don't need to talk about the first one in the ALCS. But 2010 with Philly and Boston, and now a few nights ago down in Southern California. Holy cow. And you know what? Before I tell you what I think the Sharks should or shouldn't do to re-energize the roster, I want to know what you thought of the game.
Yeah, so for Game 7, like I said, I was at the bar, and I was more watching the Wild Avs game because that was, what was it? That was on the TV I was facing, and then the Sharks game was kind of behind me. And plus it was in overtime, so I was watching those 2.
Yeah, they were staggered in such a way where even, they weren't really conflicting because the Minnesota game was like a period plus ahead of the LA game.
Yeah, and so, but I was able to watch like the first and most of the second, when I was at work, and yeah, like you said, the Kings were taking it to them all night, and the Sharks were still hanging around. They weren't like, the Kings couldn't really put them away, but the biggest thing was, I'm watching the Sharks Kings game, and then Minnesota and Avalanche go to OT, and so I turn around and watch that game. I turn around after Nino scores, and it's 4-1 Kings, and I'm just like, holy shit, what happened? Like, the Kings just turned it on in the third period, and I watched the highlights, and they just, like you said, they just dominated that Game 7, and I think now early predictions is that Quick is right now the front runner for the Conn Smythe if the Kings get that far, because he was just awful the first 3 games, and then he just turned it around and turned it on in Game 4 and just was a stud the last 4 games of that series. And that's why the Kings won, is because they had a lot of offense out in front of Quickie, but Quick just stood on his head for the last 4 games of that series. It was fantastic. He's easily the best goaltender in the league right now.
And as the series went along, the fluky stuff, well, it only happened out of fluke. I would say that the first three games, at least half the goals, and there are a lot of goals, were fluky in some capacity. A fluttering shot, a double deflection, an odd deflection, a puck that finds the only space it could find, and you know, it's one thing if it happens 1 goal in 3 games, but there were games, like the third game in the series, where 3 of the goals were that kind of fluke. And you can't count on that sort of stuff. So you have to suspect, well, if it regresses back to the mean, well then the Kings have a shot. Because if there's one thing that's differentiating the 2 of the teams is that San Jose is getting all of the puck luck.
Right.
And I thought that was, in retrospect, so interesting to say, because if you say that the Sharks are only better because of the puck luck, well, does that mean that the 2 teams are equal or that the Kings are inherently better? I had vacillated back and forth. Beginning of the playoffs, I said that the Kings were better, and then about midway through the series, I said that the Sharks were better, And so now I'm not so sure what to think. And I'm not going to let how the series ended determine my thought.
Right.
But it's very difficult now to say that the Kings aren't not better. And I don't like that. I don't like that because I'm very interested in seeing some of these franchises that either haven't won in a very long time or haven't won at all, San Jose, Columbus, really start making a push for the cup. Oh, I'm sitting here watching Boston and Montreal. I don't not like this. I think I just would have enjoyed Columbus Tampa better. That's all.
So, yeah, I definitely share that mentality with you, especially because the Blues haven't won a cup. Definitely want to see somebody who hasn't won a cup win one. But yeah, I think heading into the series, I thought that the Sharks were better, but the Kings were ended up gonna win in 7. But there's no way I was gonna predict a reverse sweep. And even
not at all.
Looking back on it, I think the Sharks have a better offensive capabilities, but the LA Kings have better defensive capabilities, especially with Quick. And when it comes down to it, defense wins championships. So I think that the teams are very even, and it's just one of those. I think they played instead of 7, if they played 10 games, it'd be 5-5 each.
Maybe. All right. So one more bit on this series, and then let's move on. So, what do you think the Sharks should do this off season to make the roster better?
Oh, I think they got to add defense. Because their defense is getting old. And there's really nobody outside of Boyle that really sticks out of my mind on the Sharks D. But I'm telling you, I would not be surprised. I mean, we already talked about it. I would not be surprised if they blow up the roster and trade away guys like Marlowe, Thornton, something like that, or just open up cap space so that way they can bring young guys in to try to open window. And I'm going to be surprised if they take a run at Miller just because of how Niemi played in the last 4 games. Yeah, I think I think McClellan is going to stay. Not necessarily sure if it's the right move or if there's a coach out there that they would want instead of him. But I definitely think that there's going to be some changes that happens. That happens next year. I mean, yeah, like Boyle and Vlasic and Brad Stewart. Those guys are, Vlasic isn't too old, but Stewart and Boyle are old.
Mm.
And
yeah, I was going to say about the ages on their defense. Boyle, Stewart, and Hannon are in their mid to late 30s, and Boyle is a UFA, and so is Hannon. Whereas Vlasic, Demers, Braun, and Irwin are all in the mid 20s. So, I think that they actually have a nice composition of age, but between Stewart and Hannon, I mean, it's not a very mobile or physical defense, anymore. So this is what I think that they should do. They need, and like, this is such a classic video game move. I know, but hear me out. So, Havlat and Stewart, buy them out. Use your compliance buyouts on them. That frees up, 5 and 3.6, $8.6 million. And you can buy them out, pretty much for that price, because they each have 1 season left. So, not a big deal. Financially speaking. You know, it's not like buying out Thornton now, where he has,
$6 million until, 4 mil this year, and then it bumps it up to $6 million for the next 5.
Alright, so.
Oh, that's Pavelski, never mind.
It doesn't matter, but the point remains. So, buy those 2 out, make the trade for Shea Weber. Shea Weber, in my opinion, is the best overall defenseman in the game right now.
Uh-huh.
And when Chara was just a little younger, it would have been Chara or Lidstrom. Take your pick based on style. But to me, now it's Weber's throne. And he's right in the prime of his career. I don't need to sell you on Shea Weber.
On Shea Weber, no.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop right there. I don't need to sell you on why Shea Weber. I will tell you that that amount of money off the cap, the 8.6, is greater than Shea Weber's cost per cap, as well as his real money is entering the years where it starts to decline. So again, San Jose, not that concerned about money in terms of real dollars, but every year moving forward, in terms of real money, Shea gets a little cheaper.
Yeah.
And by buying out those $8.6 million, and then let's try to be realistic for a second. All right, so a first, a second. I'm not particularly familiar with their farm system, but let's say Nieto, because the name sticks out to me. Plus, okay, who are you going to give back? They don't have any defensemen to give back. And I would argue that the Predators need a forward where they need a defenseman in the first place. Right. So, Brent Burns?
Yeah.
This is not a perfect trade.
No.
At all. And I'm sure that, like, we can just go up north to Edmonton, we can kind of make a perfect trade for those two teams. But as it works for the Sharks, Burns, Nieto, a first and a second. That is a pretty good deal to bring in the best defenseman in the world to be the anchor for your team that I believe is right there, man. They really are right there from taking a big step that they so desperately are trying to do.
I'm thinking, they've got some good forwards in the farm system. Just guys like Colton Sissons, and then they got, Philip Forsberg that's going to come up in the ranks, and they got guys like Taylor Beck and stuff like that.
They got Yarncroc, who had a whale of a finish to his season.
Yeah. So, I mean, they got some young guys, but yeah, I definitely think that they'll be looking for an older guy. And there's no way that the Sharks would be willing to trade like Couture or Pavelski or anybody like that.
No, the Sharks are in position where they're trying to bolster, and they're not in position to maybe move out some big chips for some other big chips. Like,
right.
That's not the position that they're in. Marleau and Thornton, it's not that they're untradeable. Well, they are if they choose to reject being traded, because they have that right.
Right.
But they're so entrenched in a kind of system and in a kind of playing style that I think that only a few teams could really bring on those kind of players and be successful with them.
Right.
Shea Weber isn't necessarily a system player. Shea Weber is just the best defenseman in the world without caveat.
Uh-huh.
So if you put that on a team that, in my estimation, is right there on the cusp of making a deep playoff run and really being a challenger for the cup, whatever the Sharks need to do, as long as that they can keep their core and not blow up their minor league system, is anything that they should do. It's completely justifiable.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Let's move on to a perspective that you brought up when we were talking earlier that I hadn't thought about yet. And it's the differences of the way you watch rounds 1 and 2. So why don't you take it away, Jake?
Yeah, so I was noticing this last night and earlier today. It's that, and this might be also because the Blues were in the playoffs at this point, but in round 1, I was watching every single night, watching hockey no matter who was on and no matter who was playing. And it was just like, I just instinctively went home, threw on NBC Sports Network, and just sat down and watched some games. And then
sounds like you were born to puck.
Oh, for sure. And then in this round, I mean, granted, it's only been 3 games, but like, I sat down and I watched the end of the Habs game, and that was fantastic because it was overtime. And then I sat down and tried to watch some of the Pittsburgh Rangers game, and it was just like, I'm not really feeling it. And then later, I was watching the Hawks Wild game, and it was just, I wasn't too into it. And I think that's what you kind of go through stages when you're watching the playoffs. The first round, it's very much, you're super excited, you're ready for the playoffs to start. And you know playoff hockey is the best kind of hockey, so you're super amped up about it, and you just watch it all. And then the second round, you die down because there's only 4 series instead of 8. And so it's just like, it kind of just goes down into a lull, and you're like, oh, it's the second round, okay, if I watch a game, cool, if not really. And then in the third round, it's more, you're kind of gearing back up. It's like, oh, it's the conference finals. Let's see who's making to the cup. And then the cup, you're going to watch every game because it's the Stanley Cup finals. Mm-hmm. So I definitely think that, I just thought it was interesting. And it's like how, at least for me, it is that there's very distinct sort of watching. It's like in the first round, you're watching it because you're excited and you're just ready to watch hockey. In the second round, it's much more, okay, you're watching a specific team or you're watching a specific series. It's not just hockey all the time.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I hadn't thought about it, but I'd certainly noticed the lull. I'd certainly noticed the dramatic difference in anticipation and excitement to be watching any given game from the first round to the second round. I think it has everything to do with what you just said. And I think that it doubles down a bit for you because you were expecting the Blues to still be playing. And right. I know that I'd be right there with you if we had lost to Philadelphia. I think, though, one detail that you missed is that in the first round, we have the underdog story aspect to it. If you recall the last few episodes, we were talking a lot about the Blue Jackets in particular. The Blue Jackets were the biggest underdog in the East. And we don't have that again in the playoffs. The next underdog is the Wild.
Right.
And it's just not the same. It's just not the same kind of ferociousness. It's just not the same kind of attention-grabbing, fly by the seat of your pants, oh my God, like this could be a turning point in the game type thing. It's just a really good hockey game.
Yeah.
And I was really happy to watch it last night, but I don't really believe that the Wild have that good a chance of winning. I'm going to step at number 1. I don't have a good second reason.
I think it's also kind of like March Madness in the sense that it's like the Thursday and Friday of March Madness. All anybody's doing is watching ball because it's so many games on. So there's so many games going on. And I think that's how it is also with the first round of the playoffs is that there's consistently 2 to 3 games going on a certain night, maybe even 4. Yep. And then now the most we're going to get is 2.
Yep.
2, maybe 3 games depending on how the scheduling just breaks down. And so, yeah, I think that's also a big reason why is that with the less games, it's not the same hockey frenzy that the first round is.
Yeah, and I thought of a good number 2. So we look at the brackets now, Boston, Montreal, Pittsburgh, Rangers, Battle of LA, and Chicago, Minnesota, and there's not a bad matchup in the bunch, but all the underdogs lost.
Yeah.
The Wild are circumstantially an underdog, but they weren't an underdog to the Avalanche. All the underdogs lost. The Wings lost. The Bolts and the Jackets lost. The Ducks lost. The most predictable thing happened. Shocker. And so it drives down the excitement a couple of notches, and maybe this is sort of where we are on a normal regular season night in the first place.
Yeah.
But first round of the playoffs, you know, your level is at like 15 on a scale of 1 to 10. And so I think that is also a big component to the lull that you were describing earlier.
Well, also, if you think about it, I mean, it's the Hawks Wild. They played each other in the first round last year, and the Hawks won in 5. And it's just like, okay, whatever. And most people expect the same. And then in the Battle of LA, that's obviously that's a big rivalry. But out East Coast in Milwaukee, you don't get that sense of a rivalry because you're not there. Boston Habs, it's obviously a huge rival, and if you're any hockey fan, you're going to watch that series. So I'm just not even going to touch that. And then Pittsburgh and the Rangers, it's kind of a rivalry, but kind of not at the same time. It's not like it was like the Flyers, and it wouldn't be like if it were Rangers Devils or.
And it's not like back in the 90s when it was Messier Lemieux.
Right.
Okay, it's Crosby versus who? I mean, come on.
Marty, maybe.
Not even. And so it doesn't have that cachet.
Exactly.
And I wanted to argue though that the Battle of LA should be the most interesting series. Boston Montreal is Boston Montreal, we get it. But the Battle of LA, because it's a battle of the city. I mean, like, what are the Angels called again? They're called the Los Angeles, help me please.
Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's really weird and a bit twisted. And it leads me to believe that Anaheim and LA are all are neighbors. Like, kind of like in the way that, Oakland and San Francisco are. It's just like two major cities that are up against one another. And like, I'm trying to distinguish that Anaheim is, Oakland, anyway.
I got it. It's like Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah,
You can't top an inter-city rivalry when the two teams are great.
I think part of that though is that they haven't played yet. And so I think that's a reason why the series hasn't quite taken off yet. But again, I totally agree with you. It should be the most interesting series. But I mean, think about the 2000 World Series between the New York Mets and the New York Yankees.
That was awesome.
Exactly. It was awesome for the city of New York. Anybody outside of the city of New York, it's like, okay, cool, New York's gonna win a championship. Awesome. And then depending on your love of baseball, you may watch it, you may not. But it's just like, when it involves one city, it's different because it's so
isolated.
Confined. Exactly. Isolated to that one area. Whereas like, Chicago and Minnesota, I mean, Milwaukee's kind of caught in the middle, so you get a lot of I see a lot of the fans bantering back and forth, and so it's it's a much more vibrant series here in Milwaukee. But I know one Kings fan and 0 Ducks fans in Milwaukee, and so it's just not existent here.
All right, I hadn't thought of it that way, and being a New Yorker, the 2000 World Series was. I mean, it redefined the word special for an experience. And the best part was that the Yankees won.
This is true.
So, yeah, I hadn't thought about the Battle of LA like that. And I also didn't realize that they hadn't met yet in the playoffs.
Have they not?
Well, I thought that's what you were saying.
No, they haven't started yet. The series starts tonight.
Okay.
That's right.
No,
what?
I don't think that they have. Yeah. All right. Well, this could be the start of something real special.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
this could be very cool. This could be very good. So that's an extra level of interest that people should have.
Would you rather have Getzlaf or Kopitar?
Oh.
Well, let's start with something I think would be a little easier.
Okay.
Would you rather have Carter or Perry?
Ooh, I gotta go with Perry. I gotta go with my boy.
I'm tempted to say Perry too, but actually I'm just gonna say Perry. I was gonna say something cliche in that I think Carter is a little more of a complete player. He can play any of the 3 forward positions, so he's more versatile, blah, 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 but I think Perry's just a better player overall. And I don't even want to bring in the MVP trophy and the scoring title into it. Like, that, sometimes that's more circumstantial than anything else. Not to take it away. He had a great season. But, yeah. And you know what? I'm a little fonder of Perry because of his tenacity.
Yeah, exactly.
Alright, but Kopi Star or Getzlaf?
Oh, I gotta go with Kopi. I gotta go with Kopitar, especially after his absolutely freaking beautiful goal in Game 7 against the Sharks.
I don't know. Getzlaf did play with a broken jaw. Broken jaw!
Yeah, I know, but still. I mean, you can, I feel
You
like
can
that,
breathe out your nose.
well, I mean, we'll probably talk about it a little bit later, but like, at the end of the day, everybody is freaking injured by the end of the
Yeah.
playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he didn't pull a Gregory Campbell.
It's true. All right. I'm gonna go with Getzlaff just to oppose you.
That's fair.
All right. All right. So let's move on to a touchier subject, and I suspect that there isn't a whole lot to say, but we both feel compelled to say something. So it has to do with race, and it has to do with racism and oh, and look, Boston just tied it up.
Did they really?
Yeah, it sucks.
Oh.
But in any event, I don't have a lot to say about racism, only in that it's everyone's job to stand up to it.
Uh-huh.
It has no place in culture, it has no place in society, anywhere on the earth. The color of a person's skin is not an important trait to their character or how they should be treated. And for me, it's literally as simple as that. You base someone on the content of their character. That's really it. All the stuff that got sent Subban's way, all the stuff I've heard get sent towards Wayne Simmons' way, and anyone else that we can mention. I endorse fighting that. Whether you're in the stands with a fist, because that's fucked up, and I have done that. I've heard someone call Wayne Simmons the N-word. I've turned around and I've taken him by the scruff of his collar and dared him to say it again. And it's not because I have a godmother who's black or friends who are black or as well as of other races and creeds. It's because racism is not to be tolerated under any circumstance. And so I'm not going to speak for Jacob or anyone else, but I think that it's everyone's job to, in a direct manner, stand up to this kind of bigotry, not tolerate it under any circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I wanted to say, is that Twitter is great, but it's also a forum for stupid people to say stupid things. And that's what we saw with Wayne Simmons and more recently PK Subban.
And last year with Joel Ward.
Joel Ward, exactly. And it's just so stupid that people still have this mentality of doing that and degrading people down to just their color of their skin. Like it's stupid. And I like the guy who's a Bruins fan who put up photos of, he held up two signs. One was saying that he was apologizing to PK on behalf of Bruins fans and saying that his talent won, not the color of his skin, and that he's going to be rooting for the Bruins in game 2 and wished him luck. And then a second poster or / sign that said, for those who called him an N-word, take off your jersey, you're a disgrace to the colors. And I think that is the way that people need to go about it, is that that people who say that kind of things are not fans in any way, because they have absolutely no respect for the game and no respect for the players who play the game. And I think that's the best way to fight it, is just not tolerate it and just basically say, I take that off because you do not deserve to wear the colors and the jersey that you say you're quote unquote supporting the team on, because that's just not the way to do it.
Well said, buddy.
Thank you.
Willie Overy, and if you're listening to this podcast, you know who that is, was quoted as saying, I just wanted to play hockey. That's it. All I wanted to do was come to the rink and play me some puck. If the other guys couldn't see that, that's their problem. And I like that mentality as the individual who may or may not be being mistreated. But as somebody who may or may not witness the mistreatment, there's got to be another level beyond that. And I said it previously, so I'm not going to go back and loop, but, I think we've said all we need to say about it, right?
Yep. I
All right.
100% agree.
All right. Well, since we're talking about Boston and Montreal, let's actually talk about hockey.
Let's do it.
It is now late in the third period, and oh, look at that. Boston tied the game.
Let's go.
This sucks. Why is Boston good at sports? It's better when they're not. That's not true. That's not true. And I've gone on record in saying that it's best when your rivals are as good as you are and you can play with that tenacity and actually have shit on the line. It's another example of a 2-goal lead getting burned. The Habs came into this period up 3-1. Beginning the period, the Bruins cut it in half, and now just a few minutes ago, they've tied it up. It's been a fantastic series. Game 1 was a rip-roaring affair, double overtime, and man, oh man, what the hell?
What?
They just took the lead.
Boston just scored?
Ugh.
No frickin' way.
With 3:32.
I don't get NBC in my room right now, and I can't watch it. But, I love playoff hockey. Wait, did they really just score or no?
Yeah.
I still have 3-3.
Well, you'll get an update shortly.
But yeah, this is, I mean, we talked about the wall in the playoffs, but this is what a playoff series should be. It's just two teams that really, really just dislike each other, going at it, playing the best kind of hockey.
Oh, I think we could bump that level up to actual hatred.
Oh, for sure. And yes, I see Riley Smith just scored.
In any event, Game 1 was absolutely fantastic. It was that, you know what it reminded me of? When two teams play hockey. They don't, not completely abandon their systems, but they're kind of playing the game as it, unfurls itself to them, as opposed to trying to force a system. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, I don't know, I'm trying to.
So you don't know what I mean?
No, I know what you're saying, but I'm trying to think of the right words to say.
They're playing hockey. They're playing capital H hockey.
That's the best way that's the best way to describe it. They're not flying by the seat of their pants, they're sticking to a game plan. They know what they're going into it, coming into the game, and they're actually executing it.
Well, no, that would be more sticking to a game plan, which is what I was saying. I didn't feel like that they were doing. What I felt like they were doing in Game 1 was guys were reading and reacting.
Okay, then I misinterpreted you.
That's all good. Game 2 has been more of a system game.
Okay.
And this is just as interesting. But Game 1, man, the double overtime, where were you?
I had a floor hockey game. Mm-hmm. And how'd you we won 4-3. We played this, what's funny is that, I'm on a team with a few of my friends that I live with. And, I just came onto the team this year. Uh-huh. But they had won the championship for 3 straight years, and they're going for the 4-peat. And then up and comes in this team that has a few club hockey players on the team. And so they're really good, and Game 1, we took them to overtime. And, we took them to overtime and we ended up winning it. And then we played them again in the championship game and we lost. And then we came out, in the spring season, first game of the season we played them. We ended up losing 6-5. And then this game we played them again and we ended up winning 4-3. And so the funny thing is I was talking to a kid on the team and I was like, we have our own little Montreal Boston series right here. And he goes, yeah, we do, because we freaking hate each other. Like on the court or on the floor, we do not like each other one bit. We're chirping each other back and forth. We get real into it. There's sticks flying everywhere. Like, we're not supposed to be hitting, but we like bump each other all the time. And so it gets real intense. And, they didn't schedule for the playoffs. So we considered that the championship game. And so we ended up winning and we played a great game. It was a blast. It was awesome. I played okay, but, as a team, we played pretty well. And so we got the win and I was very excited about that.
All right. I'm happy for you, bud.
Yeah. So so from Montreal, Boston, I come home and it's 2-2 and then we saw Montreal score. So we're like, God damn it. And then me and my friend are getting ready to change and then head over to our buddy's house because we were going to go watch Mean Girls with, a few guys and girls, just kind of get together, hang out, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, Boston scores, only 3 minutes left, and both me and my friend Paul just go nuts. We start yelling. We're like, let's go! Because both of us are rooting for Boston now that he's a Devils fan, and so he's never,
it's always a foolish decision to root for Boston.
But it was great. And then so we went over to my buddy's place, in between, the third and overtime, and we watched the first two periods, we watched the two overtime periods there, and then we watched Mean Girls, and it was good.
Hopefully Montreal can pull this out.
Oh yeah, I really want them because I want a Bucci overtime challenge. I want Bucci so bad. I love Bucci overtime challenge.
Oh, who'd you have in Game 7 for Minnesota, Colorado?
Matt Molson and Ryan O'Reilly.
Oh, those are good picks.
Yep, because both of them are Montreal Olympiques, and I'm gonna definitely do those points.
I don't remember who I had. I think I had Pominville I had Pominville and Holden.
Okay.
One off the board. However, neither came true. So, let's move on to your New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. A team that the Rangers have never beaten in the playoffs.
Really?
That's what I was told last night. I haven't looked it up. But I think it's true because we never beat them in the night. We haven't beat them in my lifetime in the playoffs.
Okay.
And, gosh, I really don't recall learning about meeting them in the playoffs previous to the Messier-Lemieux era. Well, anyway, certainly it could have happened, but I don't think it did. And it's iced.
What? Oh, empty netter?
Lucic. It sucks.
Well, it's whatever.
Alright. Well, it's 1-1 after 2 in the series. So, going back to Montreal, tied at 1.
Alrighty.
Alright. In any event, how much of the game did you watch last night?
Of the Rangers?
Yeah.
I watched a little bit of the second. No, a little bit of the first.
Oh.
And then I came down probably with 6 minutes left in the third.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was watching that, and then I watched the overtime, and then I saw the Broussard, slash Puyo, or however you say his name. Pouliot. I saw his goal. And, yeah, I didn't watch too much of it, but I watched some of it.
Alright, so, we've already gotten pretty deep into this podcast, so I can't give a full background on what my night was like. But,
Right.
You know, to give some, context to the way I opened the show today, let's see, I had a jerked pulled pork burger with 2 Scottish ales. During the game, Tom, got us 2 or 3 shots of Jameson. Alright, so that was at the first bar where we watched the Rangers. And then, and I had some Arthur's, I had most of Arthur's Guinness and some of Eric's Milk Nitro Stout. So let's just call that a lot of alcohol. And then, and then at the second bar, I had at least another 4 or 5 shots of Jameson or Southern Comfort Lime, which is what Tom ordered, as well as I ended up finishing both Eric and Arthur's beers, which were oatmeal stouts. So I had a lot of alcohol last night, starting at 7 and ending at 1. And I had nachos. So yeah, I really did fall asleep on the train the first time in a very long time. And, at 2:15, I have like 3% left on my battery, and I called my mom. And then, it was only a couple of towns away, and it's not a big deal. But, yeah, I had to call my mom to help pick me up because I fell asleep on the train and missed our stop. And I was like 5 miles away.
Yeah, that would not be fun walking 5 miles home.
No, not when I was still very drunk. Like, I could have taken a cab. Like, if I needed to walk, I know the route. It's easy.
Uh-huh.
Could have been done. So happy I didn't have to. So,
Right.
Mom, thank you. Alright, so, getting back to the game though. What did you think of Fleury's play? We can't ignore that this is a big deal in the series. So, tell us about what you saw.
I don't think he played too bad, but he wasn't lights out. He played a good game. Good first game.
Alright, so let me rephrase. Did he reinforce the stigma against him?
No. I'm gonna go with no. I don't think he showed like, oh great, here we go again, like he just chokes in the playoffs. I don't think he did that bad, but I mean on the overtime goal, he was kind of flapping around and out of position.
Yeah, well, all the Penguins were.
Right, exactly. It just looked like it was just a total defensive breakdown. It wasn't just on him.
Goal number 1, Pouliot's goal, I thought should have been stopped. And
I didn't see the first goal.
Okay. Well, it's a shot through a partial screen by Pouliot from the top of Pouliot's left circle.
Okay.
And it's a partial screen and a partial deflection, and you saw Fleury respond with a sudden spasm of adjustment. And the puck ended up going through his armpit on the blocker side.
Okay.
And I think that if he had seen it cleanly, he just would have caught it in his chest. But he didn't. And I thought that was because it was still so far away and it wasn't a heavy deflection nor a heavy screen. I thought that this is something that could reinforce the stigma against him. The Richards goal, you want to say Fleury should be there, but Richards basically did a 180, like a video game, and curled it around on his backhand and flipped it up top. Like, I think I just want to give all the credit to Richards on that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Alright, and then the winner was just a complete shit show of a breakdown on defense by the Penguins, and it was mainly out of confusion. Right, so, Brassard did win it on his initial shot, but if we replay what had happened leading into him getting possession, the Rangers were just playing along the wall, chipping it around, trying to make a cut into the middle, which is what Brassard did. But the Penguins were holding the Rangers to outside the dots by the wall pretty much the whole night. They were defending the Rangers really well, except for this slip-up. And this slip-up came on two fronts. The defense left the front of the net to go chase, I think it was Pouliot that was below the goal line. And so then Brassard gets it, he pops it up top, it pops out, and the angle which it took, it just confused everybody. And that's why Fleury and Scuderi and everybody else looked so silly, in my estimation, is because people didn't track the puck properly. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that I think it was just ridiculous. The Penguins looked like they were running around with chickens with their heads cut off. I mean, that's the best way to describe it. And when that happens, when you're scrambling around trying to just cover all your bases and not necessarily actually defending, but just like you're just like shit, and that's all you're doing. I mean, that's how goals get scored. And that's what happened. Especially even after Brassard scored the actual goal and then Puwa got it. It was just, I mean, the Rangers were just passing the puck around doing everything, and the Penguins just could not get in the right position. They're always scrambling, trying to get back into position, and it was just, I mean, that was just a bad set of 30 seconds for the Penguins, and unfortunately it came in overtime and not in the actual game. So I think they'll bounce back in game 2. But yeah, I definitely think that it was the Penguins were defending well up until they decided to break down, but especially in overtime, it's only one goal is all you need.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about the second period where the Penguins definitely controlled. The Rangers had, I recall seeing towards the end of the period, they had 3 power plays that period and only 4 shots on goal for the period.
Oof.
The Penguins had 15. All right. The Malkin goal. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Oh, well, you know what? Let's pause it right here.
Goal.
Here's a link. Oh, are you there? Did I lose you?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm here.
Okay, cool. All right, there's a link. Watch the highlight, and then we'll talk about it together.
Okay. It is loading up.
All right.
Yeah,
the most interesting part is the ruling from the Situation Room blog.
Ooh, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. And that tied the game up at 2, late in the second period. So, the Situation Room blog says, at 13:28 of the second period, the Rangers-Penguins game, video review determined that James Neal's shot crossed the New York goal line in a legal fashion, never touching, Malkin's stick. Good goal, Pittsburgh. And why that's an interesting ruling is because regardless of the facts that they're stating, Malkin still interfered with Lundqvist trying to make the secondary save.
Okay.
Now, that looks like high sticking and goalie interference. And Malkin's stick is meeting Lundqvist's goal glove above the goal. Malkin's stick is meeting Lundqvist's glove above the crossbar. So it's both penalties. And you only need to give them one. You don't need to give them both.
Right.
But do you think that Lundqvist could have made this save if Malkin wasn't there?
The video is still loading up, so I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, okay.
And now I have an advertisement. Awesome.
Alright.
But, I mean, I think that, I'll just kind of go into the first. Even though I'm still waiting to watch it, I think that if it's true, that if it looks like that Malkin's stick is definitely above the crossbar and it does touch him, then Toronto got it wrong. And I think it's a little different, trying to, say, like, calling interference after the case, because that's what it looked like what happened in the Avalanche Wild game in game 1, in game 7 for the first goal for the Avs. It looked like that whoever had bounced off of him, it was clearly on, the goaltender, Crumper might have been able to save it, but I think that it was I don't think
you're right on about this.
So I think that's a little difficult. It doesn't look like, I don't know if it touches Malkin's stick.
It doesn't touch Malkin's stick. The last 2 views you get are perfect.
No, I think that I don't think, Lundqvist doesn't know where the puck is. He doesn't know where the puck is at all, and it bounced off of his arm, not off of Malkin. I think what they did is the right call. It's a good goal.
And that's what I'm led to believe as well. Like, every Ranger fiber in my body wants to say that Lundqvist is being interfered with, and he is. However, he doesn't know where the puck is.
He doesn't know where the puck is, and while Malkin's stick is, like, kind of cutting across his glove, it doesn't it doesn't impede Lundqvist from making the save because he doesn't know where the puck is and the puck's behind him, and there's no way that he'd be able to use his glove in order to stop the puck.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a good goal I think they've got the right call.
All right. Well, let's move on to our final bit, okay?
Yes.
Minnesota, Chicago. Now, one bit of information I came across the wire this morning was that Landeskog played the final few games of the series with a very injured hand, and he's not joining Team Sweden in the World Championship. And who injured his hand? It is supposedly Matt Cook with a slash.
Oof.
Earlier in the series. So Matt Cook doesn't need to be in the games in order to decimate your team. Maybe if we start giving out round 1 MVPs, we should just give that one to Matt Cook.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for the Avs because Landeskog was one name that did not pop up very often in that series. Like, I didn't hear mentioned that often. Everybody was talking about McKinnon and Stasny, a little bit of O'Reilly, but not too much.
And EJ.
EJ, yeah, who finally, after 8 years of being in the league, decides that he wants to show up and play a little bit of a playoff series. Oh my God. The fact that the Blues could have had frickin' Tays and decided to take EJ is beyond me.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm still bitter.
You should be.
Oh man, I was actually, when EJ scored, I went on a little rant about him in the trip office, and everybody was like, damn, I didn't realize you had that strong of feelings about Eric Johnson. I was like, as soon as he tore his ACL jumping out of a golf cart, that's when I frickin' started hating the kid. The guy. I mean, dude tears his ACL on a golf course and sits out the entire year.
Eric Johnson.
Yeah, I know. It's funny that he gets me more riled up than the Blues getting knocked out of the playoffs.
You said what I was thinking.
Good.
I was debating whether or not I should point that out.
No, yeah, it's fine. But yes, Eric Johnson, ugh. But yeah,
right, but round 2, Minnesota, Chicago. Whatever this game I saw, I was very drunk. So.
Oh, who was it? Oh man, who was it? It was somebody coming down the left side of the ice. Might have been Heatley, or it might have been Priest, one or the other, but just Corey Crawford just stood on his head and just ripped a snipe right out of midair. Like, it should have easily been a goal, but just Crawford just came out and just snagged it. And in this series, Crawford's played very well so far. I mean, granted, it's only been one game, but I thought he played very well.
And I'll take your word for it. All I saw were the highlights this morning when I was sobering up. And gosh, there's only one Ryan Suter.
Yep. There is only one Ryan Suter. Well, I mean, there's Shea Weber, but there's only one Ryan Suter.
I don't know what else to say about this series. The Wild are the underdog, and so I'm rooting for them. I'm also rooting for them because they've never won anything. The North Stars never won anything either. And that's it. Like, I'm just rooting for someone new to win. I don't have any dislike or distaste for Chicago at all. If anything, revelry. But, I don't know what to say. Like, they're so overmatched. And it's not that they can't win, it's just that there's no reasonable expectation to expect them to win. Yeah. Or am I being too harsh?
No, because I'm rooting for the Wild as well. Partially because, one of the kids I'm living with, starting in June is a Wild fan. And
it's because the Hawks knocked out the Blues and fuck Chicago?
Exactly. I was gonna say, and I want all the Hawks fans up here to revel in the fact that their team is out of the playoffs a lot earlier than they expected as well. And, even though I'm rooting for the Wild, I think the Hawks make it to the Stanley Cup final. Cause I said at the beginning, the winner of the Blues Hawks is going to make it to the final. And I still firmly believe that. But I think we talked earlier about the Sharks and how they're just one move away. I think, again, the Wild need more pieces, but they are they're just right at the doorstep ready to make that next leap.
Yeah, they are. And a couple of guys are already in the system showing that they can do it. And Spurgeon had a great first round.
Right.
And so did Charlie Coyle. And if they are able to continue this trajectory and they are able to acquire another piece, whether that's a developed piece or a trade or free agent or whatever, and they are finally able to solidify their goaltending situation.
Yep. I mean, you want to talk about video game moves? There's talks that they're already lined up for Vanek, and that Vanek is gonna head out to Minnesota, which would be one awesome if you're Wild. I like the Wild. I really do like the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked them when they had Cal Clutterbuck because he's just first of all, it's a freaking fantastic name, and second of all, he's just a fun player to watch.
Nino Ryder's fun to say too.
It's true, it is, and he's played very well for them this year too. And so if they get Vanek, and then if somehow they could scrape together the money to get Miller, I highly doubt it's going to happen. I'm just throwing that out there because
they
Miller's
probably want a
Comper
Harding duo.
Right, but I always thought that Halak would end up.
Yeah, well, now he looks
now
like
he's out in
Islander.
New York and most likely going to sign with the Islanders.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So it's they're looking for not a star goaltender, but they need an above average, cheap goaltender. Brian Elliott can do well up there. And so they're those two kind of pieces away, solid goaltending and then maybe another move, offensive or defensive, and they could be like Columbus, very scary in 3-4 years.
Oh, I'm much sooner than that. It could be next season or the following season.
They could pull an Avs and just totally just run away with the Central.
And again, it's because of what we've already stated. It's right on that cusp. It's solidifying the depth and it's solidifying the goaltending situation, which, I mean, that's most teams' issue. In one degree or another, like the Winnipeg Jets, they need more depth. They need a goaltender. Now, they don't have the same top-end talent and organizational depth as the other teams we've been discussing, but how about San Jose? They need defensive depth. They need a better goaltender in many people's estimations. I'm on the fence about that. I'm kind of waiting for my passion about it to die down so I can view it objectively. But what team doesn't need one or the other? And so at some point it just becomes, do you have it or do you not have it? And right now, the Minnesota Wild is sort of both. They've been getting really good goaltending from Briz and Kumper. They've been getting really good depth from Spurgeon and Coyle. Does it keep up? And that answer, I mean, we'll see it unfold one way or the other, right?
Right.
All right.
Yep.
I'm kind of out of words.
Yeah, me too. I'm finito.
All right. Well, hang on line, but I'm gonna do the ending.
All right, sounds good.
All right, buddy. Well, we've sort of ran out of words, it seems, once again. So, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I will speak to you soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, let me turn off the recording.